75% of Americans believe in UFOs. 30% of Americans believe UFOs are vehicles from other worlds. And 3% of Americans believe they have been abducted by aliens. That's over 8 million people. They're out there, aren't they?
Welcome to the UFO Files Show with your host, Jerry Pippin.
Welcome to our Monday night UFO show. We're going to talk about the paranormal tonight as well and have a little fun because we have all kinds of guests here. Melanie Young, who just did a presentation of the mystery of the Star Child skull. And Melanie has been involved with Lloyd Pye on this subject and research for a long time. So I'm looking forward to talking to Melanie, and we'll get serious with her, maybe. We're going to try, but it's tough when I have these other two fellows with me, Noe Torres and Noe's the Terror of South Texas. But no, in the daytime, he's a librarian, so he does quite well. Are you still hanging out at the library, Noe?
Well, you know, librarians' role has changed significantly over the last few years, Jerry. We do much more with technology and networks and digital information and the use of media in the classroom now than we do with books. So anyone out there that's still clinging to the ages-old concept of librarians checking out books all day, they need to put a slight revision in that. But yes, I love being a librarian and have been one for nearly 30 years now here in South Texas.
Maybe we can give a chance to maybe delve into what you do a little later in the show. But the other guest we had is Ruben Torres. I got you guys related now. You're brothers. No. Ruben Uriarte, and he's from the Bay Area, and always says San Jose, but that's not exactly right. Ruben, where are you?
Well, it's close. I'm right in the middle between San Jose and Oakland in the great city of Hayward, California. Hayward.
I've been there many times. But it's a long time before you were born, even probably. I lived in Oakland.
Oh, okay.
Up by on the main highway going through Oakland, not the freeway, the highway that went to Berkeley, and Telegraph Avenue was the name of it. It's still there.
Oh, yes.
And so that's where I lived while I was in the Army.
Oh, wow. Well, where were you stationed at?
The United States Army Personnel Center.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There, and that's located right there on the Oakland Naval Base, right there on the Bay. The Bay Bridge, as a matter of fact. So, but I had a good 3 years there. And then I was going to get home and get back in.
Yes, so, we've had, unfortunately, a lot of our, like the Naval Air Station, and a lot of our military bases have closed down over the years. But that whole area up here has changed quite a bit. It's gotten quite large, and we have a brand new bridge, in fact.
It seems like you make 2 steps forward in progress and 1 step backwards sometimes.
Exactly. Glad. Thank you so much for having us on the show again there.
Now, we know what your specialty is, but tell our audience what you do, basically. Is your audience, are they right to draw the conclusion that you hang around Noe Torres all the time? And do research?
Actually, I wish I could hang around him some more. We live so far from distance, but we're always in touch. But I've had many interesting jobs. I was in hospital administration. I worked in schools. I worked as a counselor. I've worked I worked in security, and I'm recently retired. But I'm more busier now than ever. So I'm really enjoying this part of my life.
In fact, you and Noy have been working together on a book or two. and we'll get into some of those in a minute. Folks, we're going to open up the phone lines here in a minute. The toll-free number is 888-919-2355. And we could ask these three guests as much as you want, as many questions, and would like to hear from you. And they'd love to hear from you. 888-919-2355. You might go ahead and get in now. We'll be looking at the phones here in about 5 or 10 minutes. And Melanie, welcome. I haven't had a chance to do a lot of shows with you like I have these guys. But, hey, probably in the future, we'll get together more often.
Sounds good to me. I'm looking forward to it.
Good. Now tell me a little bit about, first of all, how did you meet Lloyd?
Well, Lloyd was coming through El Paso doing a lecture on his first book, Everything You Know Is Wrong. And I had just received the skulls about 6 months before. And when he came through, he was the only person I could think of, or this group here in El Paso could think of, to show the skulls to and to figure out, what is it and where do we go from here? And when Lloyd saw it, he was like, oh, my God, this has got to be something really weird. We really need to look into it. And he had a scientific plan on how to prove it or where to go with it. So I just, within about 2 hours, said, okay, Lloyd, you're my guy. Go for it. Here you go. Handed it over to him, and it's been history ever since.
Fantastic. Now, how did you get involved in it? You actually own the Star Child, the skull, did you?
Yes, I do. It does belong to me. The lady who found it in 1930s, after she passed away, a friend of mine asked if they could have it. They had it for about 5 years. Then they met me. And with my nursing background in neonatal nursing and my experience with the MUFON group here in El Paso, they gave it to me hoping I could figure out what it was. When I told them it was definitely not anything I'd ever seen before, they said, great, you keep it and don't tell anybody where you got it from. So that's what I've been doing.
Tell the audience exactly what this Star Child skull looks like.
The Star Child skull has all of the same bones as we have. However, it is much smaller and all the bones are misshapen. The face is much lower the face is low and small. The sides of the head is very expanded. The back of the head is very flat. The eye sockets are 0.7 centimeters deep, whereas ours are 2 inches deep. The holes where the nerves go in the eyes, the foramens, those are totally misshapen and lower in the eyes, so there's no way the eyes could be human. The Star Child has teeth up inside the bone that haven't broken through like a child's teeth, but the teeth that are out have already been worn as if they've been eating regular food. So there's just so many weird things to it that we just don't feel like it can be human.
Now, what you didn't you check the DNA at one time, or get ready or something?
We have done DNA studies, and we're still in the process of doing DNA. It's just extremely costly to finish the testing. What we have found thus far is that at least half of the DNA is not in the NIH database, which is all of the genomes that they have accumulated thus far in their cataloging, but without having enough money to completely finish.
Yeah, finish the thing.
Then
so that leads me to that leads me to the next question, Melanie. Are you looking for a sugar daddy out there, somebody that's interested in this that might donate some funds?
Well, what we really need, and it's just one of those things that if I could just get everybody to donate $5, $10 that's listening, we would be very, very close to what we need. It's a $3 million test, and that's a really large number for anybody to swallow, but $5 will buy us a base pair. And you can
how did it become valued at $3 million? Who
that's
did
just
that?
what the test costs from the lab that we're working with.
Uh-huh.
And that's
well, you've done some great work over the years, and we've been following you. I just haven't had you on the air before. It's about time.
Because, well, you know, Lloyd just has taken it, and he is such a great...
Well, I think we had you in Roswell at one time at the Cover Up Cafe.
Yes, you did. Back in Roswell, back at the very, very beginning.
Right,
was the last time I spoke publicly about it.
Right. Well, now I'm going to bring Noe and Ruben into the conversation. You guys, you run across all kinds of interesting things. You're out there looking for UFOs, and now, you know, I know personally you branched off to some paranormal things, and this is kind of an expanding study area, I guess, is the best way to put it. Is that not right?
Well, Jerry, I'd like to say that a lot of people consider UFOs, true UFOs, for which all other variables have been eliminated, to actually be kind of in the paranormal range of human experience. And I'm fine with that categorization. Our primary focus, Ruben and I, is the field of study of unidentified flying objects, which continue to appear very regularly throughout the world. I had somebody at the conference in Del Rio this weekend ask, in fact, it was a reporter from one of the television stations in San Antonio who interviewed me for over half an hour, and he asked a question during the interview about, with so many cell phones that have video and photographic capabilities out there, why is it that we still don't have any definitive, you know, jaw-dropping types of evidence, visual evidence, that UFOs really are something out of the ordinary? And, you know, I responded to that question with many, on many levels, but essentially I started off by saying that, yes, there are a lot of cameras out there, and we get a lot of pictures posted on the internet on a daily basis, ranging in the hundreds to thousands worldwide. But the problem is that these cameras are very poor quality devices. The appearances of these UFOs happen very quickly, and so you've got shaky cameras of very low quality, very low resolution, and you have an inexperienced person operating the device, and it just makes for a disastrous combination. And then you have folks who upload these pictures to the internet, to YouTube, and other, other places on the internet without anyone having actually done any research into their sighting. In other words, nobody has gone in and made sure that what they were taking a picture of was not something conventional, something that could be easily explained. So, in other words, that case has never been vetted or proven to be unexplained. So one of the key points I made to the reporter from the TV station San Antonio is that you have to have an investigation. You have to look at what about this sighting is totally unexplained and requires further research. And after you've pretty much explained away any obvious things that could have caused that light in the sky, then you have something unexplained. So that's the nature of UFO research, and that is those sets of procedures are what organizations like the Mutual UFO Network are all about, eliminating the common misidentification of objects in the sky, which are not really unexplained, but to the person who is observing them at the time, they think it's strange and weird. But once you've eliminated known things that could cause that, then you have something truly unexplained, which I might add a large percentage of UFO sightings are unexplained. But you have to have an investigation. You have to gather evidence. You can't just call any jerky little light in the sky seen on YouTube. You cannot call that a UFO. That is just simply a light in the sky and nothing else. So we have to be clear that an investigation must be conducted. So that's what Ruben and I are about when it comes to the UFO phenomenon.
And Ruben, have you and Noah run across some interesting cases that they'd like to tell us about?
Well, every time we do a conference, and I'm sure Melody could relate too, you always have people that will come up and share with you their experience, and sometimes it may be just part of the answer or part of that whole puzzle that may connect with the current case that both Melody and I are investigating. For example, about 2 years ago was when we came across these two witnesses that actually saw the large explosion on the other side of the border right around the same time that the Mexico's Roswell case had occurred, and it turned out their observations of this huge explosion just tied in with the right time frame. And then we get another witness who saw a strange being when he was a small kid in the Coyame area, who saw this being at next to his grandfather's ranch. And so this is the thing. It takes many years, but these witnesses start appearing, and we're hoping that we'll get more, not just connected with Mexico Roswell, but with the other cases. We're been working quite a bit and at crash retrievals, and sometimes we'll look at other unique cases just that are historical. And I think that's what's fascinating is looking at all these cases that go way back 30, 40, 50 years that have an enormous amount of information that just needs to be put together, and then later we just may have the answer based on gaining additional evidence. So I think it's an ongoing lot of work, but then again, it has its rewards once we get the right connections and the right information.
Yeah, as we go down, go ahead, Noah.
Sorry, I was going to pop in, Jerry, because I didn't have a chance to say anything earlier, that Melanie Young did a tremendous job in presenting her lecture for the Del Rio UFO Festival this past weekend, which was the very first UFO-related conference or event ever held in the city of Del Rio, which has a very historic past, and we can talk about that more if you'd like. It has been, the city of Del Rio, Texas, has been called Texas's Area 51, and it's also been called the Roswell of Texas because of some very strange events that have happened there in the past. But anyway, Melanie did a tremendous job, and I saw walking around the audience, people were just astonished at the information she had to impart about the Star Child skull. And I posted, I spent yesterday, Jerry, after returning from our trip, I spent the day processing the videos, the raw video that I recorded of all the lectures. And so this morning early, I was able to upload them all to YouTube. And I've been keeping track of the counts on the number of views. And Melanie's, as of just a while ago, Melanie's lecture on the Star Child skull is way ahead of all the other lectures that we had this weekend. So that tells me that there's a lot of interest in the Star Child skull, which is a fascinating story. And we're very much hoping that Melanie will be able to join us for our upcoming events that we're having. We're having a UFO festival in Edinburgh, Texas. It'll be the second annual Out of This World UFO festival in Edinburgh on June 13th and 14th. And then Melanie has said she'll be joining us as well for the Presidio, Texas Border Zone International UFO Festival is going to be held in October. So we're very excited to get the message out, to help Melanie talk about how important it is to conclude the DNA testing on the Star Child skull. It's of a special significance to us in Texas and along the border, because the Star Child skull was found not too far from the Texas-Mexico border in the Mexican state of Chihuahua. So whenever we speak down there in Presidio, Texas, we're just a stone's throw away from where the Star Child skull was found. So it's of direct relevance and high importance to us. And so I just wanted to mention, Jerry, that the festival could not have gone any better. The response from the community in Del Rio, Texas was just overwhelming and continues to be so. And everybody started talking about having another festival within nanoseconds of the first one having concluded. So we can just tell, having done these sorts of events all over the Southwest, we can just tell that Del Rio is just a hotspot of UFO interest.
Yeah, you know, when we talk about the Border Zone tour, really, Brad, that's what Brad Newton likes to refer to it as. Each of those cities are unique in their own way and offer some paranormal or UFO experience, or more. Usually more.
Yeah, it was the same reporter I was talking to from San Antonio TV. They asked me, why Del Rio? Why did you pick Del Rio? This question was worded in a way that made it sound like we had just randomly picked the name of a Texas city out of the hat. And I said, look, Del Rio has been known for decades as being a place of mystery. There was a major UFO event which was well known within UFO research circles long before the first book was published about the Roswell UFO incident, which, you know, Stan Friedman did the research for the very first book about Roswell, published in 1980, called The Roswell Incident. Well, Colonel Willingham's story of having chased a UFO in a fighter jet and having seen it gone down just north of Del Rio was already published and known in the 1960s. So, I mean, this predates the story of Roswell, New Mexico UFO crash, which has become world famous. So, you know, in our presentation to the audience in Del Rio, Ruben and I made the point that Texas has no reason to lag behind in terms of its UFO history, because we have a major event known to the entire world, and that was out there among ufologists before Roswell and in the Del Rio UFO crash. That's something that commands attention, and certainly we spoke. Ruben and I had the honor and privilege to speak to an auditorium full, standing room only group of people for our lecture on the Del Rio crash of 1955. It was an awesome experience.
Yes.
And, you know, guys and girl, that broadcast that we did, Noy, about Colonel Willingham using some actualities was actually gripping. It was something you wanted to hear from start to end. And you can still hear it, folks, at jerrypippin.com. Just put in Colonel Willingham. Or put in the UFO crash near Del Rio.
I think Ruben wanted to make a comment on that.
Yeah, as Noe was saying, that the audience were great. They were very receptive to all the information that was being presented from the various speakers, and I think our philosophy is a little different, Jerry, in the sense that, as Noe was saying, we're bringing a conference to that community, whereas that community may have never been exposed to any of this type of information before, just like Del Rio or City Presidio. See, many of these UFO promoters, that, I'm sure you're aware of a number of them, or organizations, they normally will put together a UFO conference in a large metropolitan area. And that's important because, they'll try to also try to get a major hotel and major facilities that's connected with that, which is a lot different from us, whereas we go to the community and work with the city officials, and they in turn get involved with their resources, and they are a part of this. And it's not necessarily a money-making venture. It's about getting the information out there. So what we're doing is basically doing the public good, getting information out there to the community. It's not about sales of books or trying to get someone well exposed. It's really all about getting the information out there, and that's all part of our public service.
I want to give an illustration of that real quick, Jerry. If
Go ahead.
Mind. I had a speaker that I contacted about appearing at one of our conferences, and he told me the following. He said, I don't really do many UFO conferences anymore because I'm tired of preaching to the choir. Most of the people that show up at these things, they're already believe in UFOs. They're already very much invested in the topic. So, it's just a frustrating experience for me because they're all nitpicking about little things that they know about the world of UFOs already, and they're not much interested in, I'm not interested, he said, in preaching to the choir anymore. And I said, I told this gentleman, I said, you've got it all wrong. That's not the type of UFO conference that we do. We go to small communities that want to hear about UFO incidents that have occurred near them. We work through the chambers of commerce. We work through the city government. And we put on an event that's family-friendly, tourist-friendly, that brings attention to historic events, paranormal events that have happened in that area, and that draws a lot of interest worldwide to that community and brings in tourism where it's badly needed in these small towns and cities in Texas. So, once I explained it to him like that, he was on board 100%, and he told me, Noe, anytime you need me as a speaker, I will do it, and just call on me at any time. You've got a fantastic concept. So I just wanted to give that illustration to back up what Ruben said, is we're not doing this as a money-making venture to bring attention to ourselves, to sell books. We're doing it because we love the subject, and we think it's important to get the information out there.
Before Ruben, go ahead, and then I got something to say about that.
Okay, thank you. The other really important aspect of this, and also it's our working relationship with Brad Newton, who is with the City of Presidio, is that we're working on international cooperation and trade, and the fact that we're using the UFO concept. I mean, that's just totally outside the box. And the fact that we are working with these border cities, and at the same time, we're working with our counterparts across the border, many of the Mexican investigators. And this is a great way also for them working with us. We're working with the various governments on both sides of the border. Our motto is UFOs have no borders, and this is a perfect example of the international cooperation and tourism. So there's a lot to be said, and I really think that we're onto something that's going to develop into something quite important for both.
Well, I'm inclined to agree with you, Ruben and Noe, and Melanie. I got some more questions for you here in a minute, so just hang on. I just want to make this statement before we go any further. We're broadcasting on Inception Radio Network and JerryPippin.com, and we show up several other places as well. And I wanted to mention the fact that one of the interesting things that you guys have made possible is we broadcast these conferences live on our station, on our network station, with no charge. And a lot of people around the world have never been to a UFO conference, so they don't know what to expect. And the audiences are still building because of curiosity factor is getting the most of them. And we welcome them over here to hear how a conference is actually ran. I want to give you kudos, both of you, for doing that. And Melanie, don't you think it's a good idea what they've come up with?
I just love it because it kind of goes right along with what the Star Child Project has always been about. It's not about anybody on our team making money. Actually, none of us are. We're all volunteers, and we're all doing it just so that we can help better mankind. Whatever comes up with our research is just going to go right back into humanity and see what we can do with the DNA. What can we do to help out humankind in bettering their lifestyles, their health issues also. That was the whole purpose for this whole project.
Melanie Young, who appeared at the conference at Del Rio, talking about the mystery of the Star Child skull. And we're going to talk more about that in a little bit with Melanie. Noe Torres and Ruben Uriarte have covered many, many UFO and paranormal stories, most of them based in South Texas, but not all of them. That incident up there in Northern California that you guys wrote the book about still resounds in my head simply before I fall asleep. You know, the one I'm talking about?
Oh, the aliens in the forest with Mr. Don.
Yeah.
We're coming up to the 50-year anniversary. His encounter happened in September 1964. So that's something that people. Again, it's just like the Del Rio case. The case of the aliens in the forest wasn't well known in throughout the UFO circles. There were some very well known ufologists were involved in the initial research, but after that it wasn't it basically remained hidden until we started to get more focus. And then of course having books written about the topic now has and having a chance to, Jerry, to be on your show, radio, and many of the other radio shows, but specifically being on your show and getting the word out there. And as you said, it's real important to get this word out, and the fact that you're not charging, and have this available. It's really a great service.
Well, Ruben, thank you for all of that. And by the way, it's been a pleasure working with you over the years, because I've noticed that you and Ruben and Melanie actually are out there for what I call the right reason, and that's shining the truth on these examples. Folks, we'll be talking about more, but I just wanted to drop in the phone line here, 888-919-2355. We welcome your calls, questions, whatever. 888-919-2355. I'm waiting for somebody to call up and say, well, here's some whatever, and he goes, whatever, I don't know. Ruben, let's ask Melanie something, and I got a couple of questions for you and Noe. But Melanie, I am very curious about your first impression of the Star Child skull, and now, how does it compare? In other words, did you change theories or ideas of what it might be?
Well, yes. The first impression I had really was kind of a silly impression. I didn't know what it was. I thought I was looking at the base of the skull, of a normal skull, and then when I actually started to examine it, I realized what I was looking at was this weird-looking face. And then I started thinking, okay, well, this doesn't look human. Then I realized, it kind of looks like it's one of the great little alien beings that you see. Maybe it's part alien, part human. And then through the DNA studies, we found out that it is, it shares half of our DNA, but so do monkeys. And, yeast is 26% human DNA. So you can't really say that it's human, but it does share some DNA. And then we find out that it's got 200 cc's more brain capacity than a normal adult. That tells us it's a whole new species. Neanderthal has got 200 cc's difference in brain capacity than we do. Anytime you've got a 200 cc difference, you've got a new species. So through all this testing and everything, I can say in my heart of hearts that 900 years ago, there was a new species on this planet. Was it alien? Probably. It's all subjective now. We're waiting. We can't really say anything until we've got, the scientific double-blind, peer-reviewed testing and peer-reviewed articles before science will believe us.
What kind of reaction are you getting from your fellow scientists and people that examine things?
Anytime you take this to a doctor or to a scientist and you stick it on their desk, the first reaction they have is their mouth drops, their eyes open up, and they will either say, or you can see what they're thinking, that, oh my God, this is alien. But then you ask for their name and can you put that on the record, then they say, oh, no, this is cradle-boarded hydrocephalic. And then they shove you out the door as fast as possible. That was something that Lloyd Pye had always had a problem with. He could never get anybody to go on the record, except for, 20 people maybe. And over the years, we're getting more and more people involved. More and more physicians and scientists are starting to lean our way. But again, putting their name on it is going to be very, very difficult. It's going to really...
It's one of the bad things for the scientific community, really, and including the doctors in that broad transcription of what I'm talking about. And when we talk about some of these things, at first they're willing to bet. Really, I think if you were in a card game or something, to be willing to bet that that's an alien skull. But they said, well, can I quote you on that? And suddenly they begin to think about, oh boy, what's going to happen to me next?
That's right. They're afraid of their reputation, their credibility, their job, their paycheck. And you really can't blame them.
Now, of course you can't blame them, but especially in today's media where everybody likes to tear anybody they can down.
It's
they go out to the weak spots.
Situation. It's hard on everybody, but we just need more people to be not open-minded, but people to actually critically think about this whole genre, if you will, of information that's out there. They don't take it seriously because of the ridicule and the thinking, oh, well, you're just wearing a tinfoil hat and, we're all crazy people. But if you notice, most of MUFON is not that way. They're all scientifically rational-minded people wanting to know or knowing that we're not the only ones there. We're not arrogant enough to think that we're the only sentient beings out there. It's just crazy to think that we're here alone.
Noah and Ruben, when I first started broadcasting from UFO conferences, the thing that jumped out at me was the educational stature. In other words, there are a lot of PhDs and other people in the audience that, they were embracing this idea, and that kind of stuck to me. Haven't you guys noticed there's been a lot of educational people interested?
Well, definitely. The caliber or diversity of our membership is quite increased. We have people that are renowned scientists that have retired from the Lawrence Livermore Laboratory, or even people that worked in high-profile positions for private companies and or corporations, even within the government. We even have a lot of folks. We have a lot of folks that are retired police officers or active police officers, law enforcement, security. And we get to, like I said, it's a diverse field of membership. We get truck drivers, we get people that are mechanics. I mean, you name it, the whole spectrum. But when you get that kind of diversity, and we all have that one focus, so we all are interested in trying to understand what is this phenomenon and how is it impacting us. So you get some great perspectives from people from their various scientific disciplines.
Right, and people across the board of interest, from police officers to bankers to night watchmen to your fellow scientists down the hall, if you're in a university. He may not even mention it to anybody, but this is an interest that you've been bringing out in the closet, so to speak, for some time. And every once in a while, toward the end, they get a little brave and bring it out. And they would not do that if it wasn't for the noise, and I use noise as a term for excitement, of you guys having these conferences and things like that. Both of you need to be patted on the back.
Oh, thank you.
And when they pat you on the back and they'd turn you around, put a few $100s in your shirt pocket.
Well, Jerry, we really appreciate that. And it's been a life-changing experience having these events, not simply because we like to hear, or not at all because we like to hear the sound of our own voices, but rather because we have become exposed to so many stories from so many people, wonderful people that have embraced us and embraced the whole field of UFO research. We have made so many friends all the way from Presidio, from El Paso at the westernmost tip of Texas up to Del Rio, up to Roswell, New Mexico, and all across the Southwest. It has just been an incredible ride and a thrilling adventure. And every time we have a conference, we hear new stories and meet new people that become friends. The comments that we've had following the conferences, a lot of people on Facebook following this weekend's event in Del Rio expressed such a wide-eyed appreciation for having had the privilege to listen to speakers such as Melanie Young and Travis Walton, Stanton Friedman. They use terms like dazzling and amazing, and I had never heard anything like this before in my life. As you know, Jerry, the conventional media, the traditional media, does not do a good job of covering UFO events. They classify us in the tinfoil hat wearing category, as Melanie mentioned earlier. And so they steer clear. They don't want to create a lot of controversy, get their sponsors mad at them, and hurt their viewership, listenership, or their circulation of newspapers. So it becomes kind of a dual-edged sword. You got to bring them the information about UFO research, but be careful that you don't cut off any possible avenues for disseminating that information through the media. So it becomes kind of a delicate balance. But we've had just a tremendous run of success. We're very thankful and we feel blessed because of the communities in Texas that have supported our UFO conferences.
Yeah, we get tremendous numbers, too, on these conferences when we broadcast them. And once again, I want to thank you guys for making that possible. Melanie, on this crystal skull, you don't regret getting involved with that at all, I take it, from the sound of your voice and everything. But let's go back to the first days. I always like that. Did you at one time think, hey, well, this may be some kind of hoax, or this might be an anomaly of some sort of natural phenomenon?
Well, when I first looked at it, as a neonatal nurse myself, I went to the textbooks that we teach our physicians, and I looked it up. I looked at every deformity there is that goes with the skull, and I could not find one that has all 24 different deformities or malformations, if you will, of the skull. You may have one, you may have two. You get more than three, normally the child will not survive. Most miscarriages happen because of 3 or more defects in the child. This has 24, and it lived long enough for it to eat, and long enough for the skull to form and fuse together. So there's no way that this could ever have been a human deformity. It just never could have been. And it took me, about 4 or 5 months to look through all the data that I had available to me. And then Lloyd came along and said, okay, here's what we need to do and the process we need to do to scientifically prove this. And that's where we're at.
Melanie, this is Ruben.
Yes.
I have a quick question to ask you. The last year, there were 2 gentlemen that came from Mexico, from the state of Jalisco, and they brought pictures of a skull that was similar to the child's skull. I was just wondering what was your take on that? I thought it was quite interesting that they brought these photos, and there was a group of folks that were surrounding Lloyd and these 2 gentlemen during that time. And
I didn't get to see those, so I don't know if it's the same as what I'm thinking of. I'd have to really, I need more information.
Oh, okay.
I've seen some pictures that look like it, but I don't have the 180 degree or the 360 degree to clarify that. We need more information on those skulls.
So basically, you're talking about this skull being crystallized.
No, it's not crystallized. This is a bone. It has the same. It's bone. It's not a crystal skull. This is a bone skull, an artifact, a relic.
Okay, thanks for straightening me out on that.
Right.
Now, Jerry, there have been some interesting artifacts found in the past that have been of interest to researchers who subscribe to the ancient alien theory, and that is these strange crystal skulls that have been found, intricately designed thousands of years ago when such processes for creating objects like this were not available. So, I understand where that's coming from in your confusion, that there has been a lot written and said about these remarkable man-made crystal skulls. Were they emulating some sort of technology that was shown to them by ancient astronauts? We don't know. It's an intriguing case that was brought forward, I think, first in the 1970s by Eric von Däniken in his Chariots of the Gods.
Yeah, and another question that Melanie was when she was sharing with us about the crystal skull, and I began thinking of, the question is, it's about 900 years old. And, can you hear me?
Yeah, it is. The carbon dating studies that we had done on the star child skull and the normal human skull were both 900 years plus or minus 40, done at 2 separate labs without them knowing where their sample came from.
And the question would be, why there in northern Chihuahua? What was it doing? Are there perhaps other clues that we could find out about its origin, or was it others that were there besides just that one? The amount of petroglyphs that are in that area there, Melanie, I've seen. Okay, but I was just to finish off is that I've seen so many petroglyphs or photos of petroglyphs in the northern Chihuahua area from various investigators. Again, going back with the ancient alien connection that Noe just mentioned, and I just think that's something we need to continue to look at, and maybe there might be further clues. But Melanie, just wondering if there's anything, and you were going to mention something before, I guess the noise distraction had interrupted us.
Well, we don't know exactly where it was found because the woman who found it has since passed on. Mm-hmm. And So we just know that it was found in northern Chihuahua around the Copper Canyon area.
Yeah.
We do know that there is a strong history, a strong oral history of star beings and coming down and mating with the humans and that type of thing. We know there's a strong oral history. As far as scientific and stuff like that, I don't know of anyone that's been able to go down there and do that. I haven't been able to personally, and without a guide, I wouldn't feel comfortable going down there by myself.
Right. And this is what's the beauty is now with our network that we're developing and the interest that people are having in the Star Child School, for example. We have some really great friends living in the Chihuahua area that have been helping us tremendously with the Mexico's Roswell case, as well as the other research that they've been doing. So I have a feeling that as this continues, Melanie, that we just might be able to find much more important data for you, as well as perhaps getting a resolution. I mean, a clear answer as to what has been going on, just not only in Mexico but throughout the world.
I was just thinking that what if there are more skulls or skeletal remains in that same general area that haven't been found yet? Perhaps the locals in that area have run across some of these artifacts in the past and just haven't told anybody. It would be fascinating to conduct a field investigation, Ruben.
Yeah.
And we have as you said, we have the connections now in place to do that. Brad Newton is a frequent traveler to the Copper Canyon area. In fact, during this Border Zone UFO Festival that just happened this past October, we were at one time scheduled to go down to the Copper Canyon with Brad and an official tour guide from Mexico and several other people. I think Lloyd was even at one point thinking of going down there with us. It would be fascinating to pursue that line of investigation, I think.
That sure would be. You guys need to get together and go down there and tell me what you see.
I would love to. I would love to.
That would be great. The Copper Canyon it's I believe almost 1.5 to 2 times bigger than the Grand Canyon. It's also an area noted for many UFO sightings over the years. So it's a beautiful but yet very, very, very strange and beautiful environment.
By the way, folks, actually at the end of this broadcast of the Jerry Pippin Show, we're going to present Travis Walton, and he's, of course, going to be talking about his 1975 UFO abduction, and so stay tuned. We have that coming up as well. Noy and Ruben, let's address this subject to you. I just noticed it coming in. They want to know if there's any strange reports of things happening near the border zone area these days, or is it all in the past?
Absolutely. It's very, very much of a hot spot today, and I think that this is one of the reasons we've had such high attendance and great amount of interest in our festivals. This is not a relic of the past. This is something that is ongoing on both sides of the border. Hence, we have come up with a motto, UFOs have no borders. We see intense activity almost on a daily or weekly basis, both all along the U.S.-Mexico border. Now, this is not to say that we're not having sightings all over the world at the same time, but of interest to us and to directly answer the listener's question, there has been increased activity over the past 10 years to a very high degree along the Texas-Mexico border specifically. And we here, Ruben has close connections with, and through him, so do I, with a lot of Mexican researchers, UFO researchers, who tell us that things are really hopping in terms of UFO sightings and UFO encounters. on the south side of the Texas border in Mexico as well. So definitely this is a hot spot. And by the way, I have alluded a couple of times to the questions the reporter from San Antonio TV was asking me. And one of them that he asked goes along with this question. He said, why is it that you UFO people, I knew that I was in trouble when he started his question with that phrasing. Why is it that you UFO people always talk about cases that happened 50 or 60 years ago? Why don't you tell us about something that's happened in the last few days or weeks? And so that is one of my favorite questions to answer. And basically, in a nutshell, I told him that it takes a long time to build a body of supporting evidence. It takes a long time to tell witnesses, to convince witnesses to come forward, to detach them from their various commitments and obligations and their employment obligations and so forth that prevent them from speaking about an event right after it happened. It takes time for people to become convinced in their own minds that it's
You're listening to Inception Radio Network, Chicago, Illinois.
To humanity that they speak up about what happened to them. And all of these processes take time. And I gave the illustration of the Roswell UFO incident, which was not publicly made known until 1980. Well, we're talking about something that happened in 1947. The first book about it was published in 1980. That's a significant time frame. So it takes time. And the other thing is, once you have time to look at a case like that has happened in the past, you can then turn it around, look at all angles, look at documentation, look at eyewitness testimony. You've got solid, credible evidence that's been investigated over many years, and hence the historic UFO cases are of tremendous interest, not just because we like the study of history, but they directly impact what's happening in our skies today.
Jerry,
those are good points. Ruben, you on stage helping translate at least one presentation I caught at the Del Rio conference. I believe he's talking about Mexican events. Do you remember any of the things he talked about that you translated that you could pass on to us? I'm always interested in international things.
Oh, we were very fortunate having Mr. Carlos Guzman, who's one of the top-notch investigators from Mexico. He's also our national director for MUFON, and he was going over some of the video footage that he presented there at the audience. There were sightings that were, it was really interesting. There were some old movies that he was showing that these cameras caught some images in the background. And so he was showing these different movies or segments of the movies to the audience. I know we're closing very shortly in terms of time, but both Noe and I are working with Mr. Carlos Guzman and his colleague Alfonso Salazar on a book that they had written basically on aviation encounters of UFOs for the past 5 decades. And so we're working on translating this into English, and this should be, once it's completed, I'm really sure that it's going to be of high interest to many, many people.
Yeah, I'm sure. I can't wait for it myself. They've had interesting contact stories over the years down in Mexico, too. I mean, all kinds of things.
Jerry, maybe in the future we could have Carlos to be on your show. He is bilingual, but we can probably have him on your show to talk about what's going on in Mexico, and if need to be translated and do a simultaneous translation in English.
Yeah, and Ruben, I'd also like to have, maybe on the same show, we could have Carlos de los Santos, who he was the one who encountered UFOs that surrounded his plane. You can hear his distress call to the Mexico City Airport control tower. You can hear him saying in a panicked voice, my My airplane is surrounded by UFOs. I've lost control of my instruments. Mayday, Mayday. It's one of the most shocking and amazing sound recordings I have ever heard, and it was an actual case. There were additional witnesses in the area that saw this happening from other planes, and we have the tangible evidence of the recording that was recorded by the Mexico City Control Panel tower. And so the Carlos de los Santos pilot encounter, also from the 1970s, it happened just a few months after the Coyame UFO crashed near Presidio, Texas, and the UFOs that surrounded his plane were very similar in appearance and physical characteristics to the Coyame UFO crashed object. So that is also a fascinating case that Carlos spoke about. Carlos Guzman spoke about this weekend, by the way. So that would be great for a future show, Jerry.
Yeah, that'd be a good show. We'll have to do that. Well, are you guys glad that you got involved in these Border Zone conferences? I know it's been a heck of a lot of work.
Oh, it's a lot of work, and a lot of kudos to Noe. He's done a tremendous job. Noe has a lot of experience, and you were talking about his background, and he brings with that a lot of great skills in working with cities and putting together these projects, these programs, and he also has a great IT background too. So, I mean, he was working on all fronts. So, my wholehearted thanks to Noe and all the great work he's done.
Jerry, I just want to say thank you so much to Noe and Ruben. They are awesome people, and they're doing a great work around this border, and I really appreciate everything they do for us.
Well, Melanie, we appreciate you and your efforts.
I do what I can when I can.
It's a great team we're putting together, Jerry, and I think we're going to be together for the long run, and we're going to be getting this important information out to a lot of people who haven't heard it before. I think through these festivals and conferences that we're doing are an important vehicle for that. And I feel good that a solid team of people who are extremely interested, like Melanie, Brad Newton, the Carlos Guzman and others, is starting to fall in place and coalesce so that we can move forward with this.
Well, I tell you what, we still got a little ways to go here on the show, but I want to, first of all, say you're listening on Inception Radio Network. This is Jerry Pippin. And Melanie, I think we're going to let you go. We'll enjoy the first hour, and I'm going to get Ruben and Noe to start talking shop talk about some of the things they've been doing.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
And do you have any closing stories you'd like to give us? Some experiences with?
I just want to thank Noe and Ruben, and I'd like to put a shout out to all of our fans and to Lloyd Pye and his family. And Lloyd's, we really, really miss him. Lloyd Pye passed away in December, and we're just trying to pick up where he left off. It is so important to me that we finish this project.
Yeah, he passed away from cancer.
15 years.
Okay, thanks, Melanie. It's great having you on.
Thank you so much.
We'll have you on again soon.
Okay.
And now it's the Noe Torres show.
Jerry,
with Ruben Uriarte. Or is it the Ruben Uriarte show with Noe Torres? I guess I'll get them starting over billing first. But no, let's just be friends and say all three of us enjoy equal billing. How's that?
Jerry, I'm sorry I stepped over you. I was just so emotionally touched by what Melanie just said because, the very last public appearance that Lloyd Pye did was at one of our festivals, the Border Zone International UFO Festival in Presidio, Texas this past October. So we were honored And, you know, Ruben and I speak about this often, how so many things that have happened to us with regard to working together over the past 7 or 8 years that we've been working on projects together, so many things that have happened to us seem to be, you could classify them as synchronicity, you could call them blessings, out of the blue, unexpected. Suddenly the stars align and something magical happens. And one of those magical things really, Jerry, was our involvement with Lloyd Pye, who had never spoken at one of our conferences, and we really hadn't had as much contact with him as we should have over the years. But suddenly the stars aligned, and Ruben and I felt compelled to invite him to speak in Presidio. And he wholeheartedly agreed right away. He was very excited. As we mentioned previously, Presidio is near the site where the Star Child skull was found. And he also saw it as an opportunity to meet face to face with Melanie Young and Ray, her husband, who could easily come down from El Paso to Presidio. So anyway, it was just a few weeks after he agreed to do our conference that he was diagnosed with the medical condition that eventually took his life. So Ruben and I just look at each other, and it's beyond comprehension how these things happen, because we had the joy and the privilege to be the last place, at the last place with Lloyd shortly before he passed. Yeah. And we gained as individuals, as human beings, because of that.
Yeah, if I remember,
he'll be missed. Yeah. Go ahead, Ruben.
Oh, if I remember, I think that the fact that Lloyd was so excited to come to our conference, he really wanted to come. Yeah, that made us feel really good. And as Noe was saying, we're just very honored having him come to our conference. And that was the last one. And when we saw him, he looked fit, he looked healthy, he was very energetic. And I think the thing that most intrigued me about him was he's a very intelligent man. Right? I mean, I could just hear him, even his thoughts, how you could hear him, how he was able to talk and analyze, and I just knew that he was definitely someone of great intellect.
Yeah, the first time I became aware of you guys all working together was down in Roswell. I guess that was many years ago. And so, that's one of the great things about doing these shows, and the conference is kind of a circuit. You get around, you meet a lot of people, and all of a sudden you've had so much contact with them, they're friends and family.
Oh, definitely. It's just a whole evolution. We're all the different topics that both Noe and I have been working on, and then also RoswellBooks.com. We work with other authors, and so there's other folks that have also, other researchers that have also worked jointly with us on their research, and so our whole book library has definitely expanded.
We were talking about earlier, Jerry, that UFO researchers don't get much respect from the conventional or traditional media. It's very difficult to get any coverage of UFO events, much less the data that results from research by groups such as the Mutual UFO Network and other organizations. It's very difficult to ever get that in the media. Well, by the same token, it's difficult to publish books about UFOs. When you approach the major publishers, they say, well, that's not a topic that's marketable. That's just a small niche group out there, and we're not going to sell very many copies of books about UFOs. And they are proven wrong time and time again. They're, For example, Leslie Kean's book, which became a New York Times bestseller, the book about the book that was done by Bill Burns, The Day After Roswell, also a New York Times number one best-selling book. Time and again, you have major books that make it all the way to the top of the sales chart because someone made an exception to this staid policy among publishers to actually put this information out there. But realizing that it's not it's not typical for a publisher to want to touch the UFO topic. Ruben and I decided a few years back to start our own private press, which we call RoswellBooks.com. And we have helped a number of UFO researchers get their material published, and we do it under our banner. And it isn't so much that we want to act as a publisher and do the whole publisher thing where we collect royalties and, take a chunk of what the author would make. It's nothing of that. It's just being a means by which UFO information can be disseminated, and authors who might otherwise have a very difficult time getting published, we might decide to publish their work if we think that they're credible, that they're good researchers, and that they have something that aligns with our own interests. And we've done that with a number of people, to a moderate degree of success as can be expected from a small press. So that was our intent when Ruben and I registered ourselves as a small press some years ago and created RoswellBooks.com, and we bought a set of ISBN numbers. And now we're publishing our books primarily through Amazon because of the far reach that they have in the publishing world. And we've had a great deal of success, especially now we've entered the era of digital books. And most of our titles now, we're probably selling more, or at least as many ebooks as we are print books. So a lot is happening in the publishing industry.
Yeah, in broadcasting business as well. It's an ever-changing world thanks to the Internet. No doubt about it. But the good part about it is that it helps you reach out and touch people that never would have got involved, and they do have stories to tell. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I saw a comment in the newspaper today about how the Pope made a statement that the Internet is a blessing from God that was sent to us as a means to help people communicate with other people who are in spiritual need. So I thought that was a very interesting remark from the head of the largest Catholic group, the largest Christian group on the face of this planet. And not too many years ago, a predecessor of our current Pope, for the first time, issued a statement through the astronomer, the Vatican's astronomer, stating that there is no contradiction among those who believe in extraterrestrial intelligent beings and what the Bible and the Catholic Church teaches. There's no contradiction there. That God expresses himself in many different ways in the universe, and it's quite likely that there are intelligent life forms, intelligent beings elsewhere in the universe, and they would be, our brothers and sisters in the eyes of the Creator of the universe.
Many of these religious institutions are coming around to the idea, and we congratulate them for keeping their eyes open, because something is happening. It's been happening for a long time. I can't put my finger on it exactly, but what do you guys think is happening? I mean, why flying saucers, and why don't they land and talk to us? Ruben, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I think
over the years, the answers have been coming in so many different ways. That was, he had mentioned the internet, and has been such a valuable tool of getting rapid information. For example, one can go to MoveOn.com and you can see the 20 cases that have been recently reported. Doesn't mean that we're investigated. That these are the cases that have just been reported. You can also go to UFO Tracker, which is also on the MoveOn website, which will show you a map and show you real time where that report is coming from. Just fascinating tools that are available because of technology. But I think that with over the years, with this, with all the additional information, I don't know whether there's two ways of looking at it. Because, like for example, our statistics have dramatically increased. Again, it's because technology is available. People are reporting their sightings through the internet or on the phone, and now what's even I'm just totally blown away with it is the fact that the smartphone. These smartphones have so many capabilities. You can take the picture, you can post it on your email, you can put it on Facebook, you can put it on Twitter. I mean, you can get that information out there very rapidly. Bottom line,
you certainly can, and we broadcast on the smartphones as well. We have a device, something to download, and it's a sizable audience.
Yeah, I was watching Noah. He and another good friend, Stephen Andrasco. They were some help in the city with all the IT work that needed to be done, and I was just amazed how they were hooking up everything in order to broadcast the show, the radio on your radio program. So it is definitely been a fantastic tool. I keep thinking though, that's it. If we didn't have the internet, if we didn't have this, all these available items at our disposal, does it mean that the amount of sightings would still be the same or would have gone down? I just keep wondering, the tip of the iceberg, is it just I really can't say, is it maybe there's been so many sightings already happening, but the fact that now people have the means of communicating, making their reports. So there's two ways of looking at that. One is based on statistics, you can now count them, and you can say, yeah, we have more of this and that. Or the other question is, it's probably always been there. So I think that once you do the investigations and once you could tie in the different information together, I think you'll see the pattern, as I'm sure you have, Jerry, by interviewing all the various guests that you've had on your show over the years, and you've heard the same similar explanations, or maybe a little tweak here, a little bit there, but kind of gives you an overview. This is part of the evidence of what's going on in on our planet.
Yeah, my take on it is when we're talking about UFOs and paranormal experiences, both actually, so many people have them and swear by their sightings, and there is some photographic evidence to back up what they've seen, and I wish there were more, but, let's come on, guys. Not all those people can be creative writers. It goes on and on and on, people seeing things, and it makes you wonder what they're doing here. Are they in cahoots secretly with the United States or some other government? And how would they actually confine that to one government? I mean, when we talk about UFOs, we're talking about a worldwide government, really. We're talking about a worldwide experience of people. And so why would they concentrate on just the United States or South Texas, but no tourists? There's some concentration in South Texas, For
That's
sure.
correct. Hey, Jerry, there definitely is, and we'll be definitely talking to you about it more in the very near future. I'm going to turn it over at this point to the very capable hands of my friend and co-author Ruben Uriarte, because I'm going to have to attend to a previous commitment. It's been an honor and a privilege to be on your show tonight, Jerry, and looking forward to the next time that I'll have a chance to be on with you. And we'll talk some more very soon. You and Ruben go right on ahead with your conversation. I'll be looking forward to hearing what you all talk about later.
Okay, and I know you've been through the grinder energy-wise, so you need the night off for the other activity. Thanks a lot, Noe.
All right, we'll talk to you later.
Take care, Noe.
All right.
Okay, Ruben, we got you by yourself now.
Oh, yes.
Let's continue the conversation here. You can bring it any direction you want as we continue to talk. Don't forget, we're going to feature a little later very interesting talk, something that he was actually the keynote guy for the event, Ruben, you just finished with. And so I guess I should ask you at this point, did you get a chance to catch anything that Travis Walton said? I know he had a good crowd, didn't he?
Oh, yes, but I think I was even more luckier than the general audience, is the fact that, like we did at Presidio, I had a chance to pick him up at the airport, and when we had the event in Presidio. And I picked him up at the airport, and we had to drive 4 hours of driving to get to Presidio. And we just had a great conversation, and I've learned quite a bit from him. And it was the same this time around, where I had to pick up both Stanton and Travis.
But Travis has always been pretty sincere.
Yeah.
When I've been one-on-one with him, like in a car or whatever, driving him someplace. What was your impression of him? First time you met him and this time? I mean, he never changes, I don't think.
Oh, I with Stanton, I mean, he is just has so much wealth of information over the years. And one thing he does, and it's something that I keep remembering, or just something that just hits me in the face, is how important it is to really look at our history, the history of ufology. All the players that probably may not be here with us anymore, that have passed away, but these were many of the pioneers, many of the people that have contributed to where we're at today, and because of their efforts. And so when Stanton talks about Project Blue Book and some of the earlier researchers that were involved in their different fields of research, it really strikes me. It really hits me. Like, don't ever forget these guys. Certainly.
Well, we try to keep them alive, at least in memory. Now, on our website at jerrypippin.com, we have a healthy lineup of people who have passed away that we have interviews with. Yeah. And those are things that are golden and never will go away.
I think
Travis Walton is a great guy.
Great guy. And his experience, he's a very humble individual. He's very much is out there. One of the things that he shared with you and with me is how there might be other people that will twist the story and of Travis's experience, and that's why Travis goes out there to wanting to share the story, to have it come from his words and not from anyone else. But the other thing too is that both Travis and also Stanton, they have a great way of reaching people. You mentioned earlier about practicing or preaching to the choir, and that's what happens a lot with probably the other researchers is they do preach to the choir over and over again. But both Travis and Stanton, they're always speaking to a new audience. They're always talking to people who have never been to a UFO conference, and they themselves have had some unusual experiences, and then they themselves have no one else to talk to. For example, I've where people have had maybe some abduction experience, they never had a chance to express it other than coming, but they've been wanting to share it, and then they come to an event like ours, and they're among people like themselves, and then also they can approach Travis, they can approach Stanton and say, hey, I had this happen to me, I had this abduction experience, what do you think? So I think that's part of the outreach that our particular conferences are doing, and I'm sure that maybe there's other people out there too that are probably doing something similar like us, but maybe perhaps on a smaller scale. But the fact that we just need to be out there and keep our ears and our minds open, and not make judgment, and it's always a reminder for me, Jerry, that I need to always not make any judgment and just really listen. I have a bunch of phone numbers. I took down a bunch of phone numbers for people who I didn't have like all the time to listen to the story, but I told them that I would like to listen to them at a different time, and that I would call them back. And they were grateful that I did listen to them, and the fact that I was interested enough to wanting to get in contact with them again. And there were some good ones, some very interesting stories that I hopefully I'll have the time to call each person and catch up with them.
On the broadcast later, we have Travis Walton talking about the 1975 UFO abduction experience. And it's hard to believe it's that far back, 1975 now. But I think there's something to be said, Ruben, about bringing these guys on that had those first experiences and came forward. And they're still telling the same story after all these years.
That's amazing. And it's also there might be some insights that, as Travis will share with you, and also you'll hear him in his presentation. Yeah, it's been quite a long time, but time does move very, very quickly. And then the same thing is that, for example, our particular case, the Mexico Roswell case, happened in 1974. Very interesting that the same thing with Travis. It also happened in the Southwest, right there in Snowflake, Arizona, back in November of 1975. What's interesting is if we ever do have this gentleman to come on your show, Noah had mentioned him as Carlos de los Santos, the pilot, who encountered his three UFOs surrounding his airplane. That happened in May of 1975. And the reason why we were interested specifically in this case was the fact that the UFO that hit that airplane over Chihuahua back in 1974 was a small disc, approximately around 12 to 15 feet in diameter. The case that happened in May in 1975 with Carlos de los Santos over in Mexico, again, there were three of these small UFOs that completely had his airplane surrounded. And there was a slight collision with one of them because one of these small discs actually hit underneath the fuselage. Now, we bring in these cases. They were probably, people did know about them a little bit, but now you don't hear much about these cases anymore. But the fact that we're bringing them back because it ties into another case. This is all part of the puzzle.
Yeah.
And the thing that I found quite remarkable is that this isn't the only case reported of small UFOs. I mean, even now, that's we're getting those reports. But when I was, both Noe and I have been translating Mr. Carlos Guzman's. That's the Mexican researcher who did the book on aviation encounters. We came across other incidents of other pilots being in contact with these small scout ships or whatever they've been called.
Maybe you give us an example or two of those crashes or collisions or close encounters. I mean, Mexico's had a full share of these things happening for a long time.
Yes, quite a bit. It goes back from it goes back to ancient times, and there's been ever since there was some major flaps that were going on in Mexico in the early '60s. Significant amount of sightings back in '65, for example. Then there was the big major one that occurred back in 1991 when you had the eclipse, the solar eclipse, and that's where you had people that were recording with their were out there to watch the solar eclipse. And then all of a sudden, people start seeing strange objects up in the sky. Mr. Jaime Maussan was very instrumental in getting this information out over the years with his shows. And now we're finding, and through our connections, there's just a number of people that are using the internet that have their own radio shows, their own television shows throughout Mexico and Latin America. And they're just recording exactly what's going on right now. Certainly, we have a language barrier. It's all in Spanish, but now with the technology, we're able to translate it into English. And I think we're going to be getting a lot more information, Jerry.
We certainly are. I agree with you that. Joe Champion, you might give me a little cue about how long we have before Travis is ready. We pre-recorded this. Well, I think we have 4.5 to 5 minutes, so we'll continue here with you. Ruben, is there anything else you want to say before we let you go? 4.5 minutes goes pretty fast.
Oh, yes. Well, for all, again, please go to a couple of websites. Go to delrioufo.com, and that'll give you the latest update of our festival that we just had just several days ago in Del Rio. And we have another website, which is ufoborderzone.com, and that will give you the update of all the different festivals that are being planned along the border. You know what, Jerry, maybe we'll hit El Paso someday too. That'll
be great if you do.
Yeah.
I can get to El Paso fairly easily. I can't get any place right now. I'm still recovering medically, but I'm doing better all the time.
Oh, absolutely.
And so we appreciate you taking this time to talk to us about all of the things that we discussed, and we discussed quite a lot. What was the crowd number? Do you know the count?
I heard that there were like at least 300 in the auditorium. I think there was a lot more because they sold a lot of tickets, and there were a lot of last minute people where people bought tickets or that came to the festival. But that doesn't count the parade, and that doesn't even count the amount of people that were there at their park. There was lots of people. They had a vendor show, they had the UFO contest. They had everything there at their park, and there were hundreds of people there. So they were just the people from the Chamber of Commerce and with the city. They were totally surprised by the amount of interest. So for sure, they're very interested in having this event again. It's going to be
well, good. You can probably get to go do the whole thing over next year.
Absolutely, and so, Jerry, I'm looking forward for us to reconnect again at one of our festivals and just keep plugging away and keeping.
Yeah, I used to get to them personally quite a lot, so maybe that will improve physically for me, and I can show up one of these days.
Absolutely. We want you. We're gonna keep our prayers for you, and that your health will improve, and see you in the person.